everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Just a Couple of Bagels podcast. We're still at home. We're still stuck indoors, not allowed to go out and play tennis, but we're plodding along. As ever, I'm joined by Mr. Sam Brown. How are we, Sam?
Hello, yeah, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very well. It's a very, very special episode today.
It is exciting.
We have a guest, so if you're sick of listening to just us two talking, you've got a third person to get sick to.
Exactly.
It's a person who we've known for quite a while, I'd say.
Yeah, you've known him longer than me, but yeah, quite a long time now.
Yeah, I've known him for donkey's years. I think at this moment in time, I'm taller than him, and I was much shorter than him when I first met him. That will tell you how long it was.
I'm probably smaller than him, but I am smaller than most people. So.
Very true. Very true. We thought he'd be a good guest because, well, he can talk, can't he?
He could talk for England, I think. But, he's a very interesting character.
He is. It is none other than Prestbury Tennis Club's assistant head coach, Jarek Dabros.
Thank you for saying his last name. I don't want to mess it up, so that's on you now.
That is on me. That's on me.
Yes.
Little bit about him. He is a level 4 performance coach, so he knows his stuff. He is, which I didn't know, is he has a qualification in physiotherapy. So if we ever...
Oh, I knew. Yeah.
I didn't really know that. And if we ever have an injury on court and we're near him, we're in safe hands.
So he's the man. He's most talented, not just a tennis coach.
Well, to be fair, we asked him for a little sort of profile, and he gave us about 2 pages worth on a phone.
He has a lot of information. He's well educated in all things tennis and physiotherapy.
Well, I'm sure we'll definitely enjoy it, and I hope everyone listening to this will enjoy it as well.
Yeah, 100%. It should be a fun little chat.
Right, he's in the building. We're here with Jarek Dabros. How are you?
Hi guys, I'm good, thank you. You all right, Tom?
Yes.
I'm very well.
And Sam, yeah, obviously.
yeah, man. Yeah, I'm doing well, mate.
He's here, he's hiding away.
I'm hiding in the corner. It's good to hear your voice again, Jarek. It's been too long.
You're not obviously doing as many Zoom meetings as I am.
No, apparently not.
Well, don't worry, we have bigged you up a lot. So please don't disappoint.
Shame you can't see my face laughing.
Oh dear. Right, well, we'll get straight into it with our first question. Now, you're probably one of the only people who could tell us this, but we'd like to know the differences you found with coaching in England and coaching in Poland.
Obviously, the main one is the weather. The weather is a big factor because the season is a bit different in Poland and in England in a way. In Poland, you play only from about April till September outdoor mainly on the clay courts, and then you move indoor, or you just put the bubble up, where in England you play all year round outside. Obviously I'm not talking about the private David Lloyd setups, so that's the biggest difference, that you have to put up with whatever the weather you have here. In Poland, you cannot play in the rain because the clay courts are not designed for that. So when you coach, yeah.
Sorry, I just say, do your local tennis clubs then, like for example, our version of Prestbury in Poland, do they have like bubbles and all that set up within them already, or do you as a coach go to another facility?
Sorry, I didn't hear you very well, Sam. So
sorry, I'm just saying. So obviously you're saying when you coach in the winter in Poland, you put the bubble up. I was just saying, do your club? So for example, if we had Prestbury Tennis Club in Poland, would we have a bubble already set up at a local club, or do you move to another facility?
I mean, not obviously not all the clubs can afford the bubble in Poland,
Yeah.
but most of the sort of towns, cities, you will find that they have, a good number of clubs with the bubbles up,
Yeah.
but in England you don't really see it.
No, yeah.
It's just non-existing.
Yeah, right, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
So another thing, the difference between sort of coaching in Poland and UK is the players' attitude. I would say
Right.
that's the big difference, because in Poland the kids are much hardworking and focused
Yeah.
than in England. so
100%.
it's also the respect to coach and discipline during the session. It's a big difference in that as well. Another thing is the cost, which actually works in the favor for England, because it's much cheaper here to be a member of a tennis club than it is in Poland, especially when you compare the
Okay.
salaries. When you think, for example, that what in Poland it would have cost you in my free clay court setup in my club, in Poland when I grew up, it would have cost
Yeah.
you now about £500-600 for a season, which is only a
Oh,
summer
wow.
season. So it
Not
is
even a full season.
huge. It is huge.
Yeah.
And like I said, the season is only between April and sort of September, and you're paying £500-600. And if you move indoor, if you wanted to go to like an indoor club facilities, then you would be paying about sort of 20, 30, 40 pounds an hour easily
Oh,
for
wow.
just renting a court.
Jeez. What about
So,
coaches out there? Is the coaching salary similar to England, or is it better or
uh,
worse?
I mean, like everywhere, you've got good coaches, bad coaches, the coaches who care, the coaches who just there for the money. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't use it as like a generalization of
No, that's fair enough.
but like I said, the access to the tennis clubs in England is much better than in Poland. You have much more tennis clubs in the radius of 10 miles. Sometimes you have 2-3 tennis clubs, where in
Yeah.
Poland it's not like that. What I like, for example, here is we have summer and winter leagues where you can get a lot of young players playing in them, as well as adults, where we don't have that in Poland. It's just mainly the tournaments you would have to go to, and here you've got plenty of tournaments, and if you really wanted to, you just round the corner, the local tournaments within the radius of 20-30 miles, you could be playing every single weekend if you wanted. So that's not what's happening in Poland. Therefore the cost in Poland for traveling is much higher as well, because you have to travel further to tournaments. So that I would say that's just a few differences.
Okay. One little question, Jarek. You mentioned about the indoor facilities and the bubbles. So would you say they're more widely available in Poland than they are here?
Yeah, more expensive, but more.
Is that because
more...
I don't know what I don't know what you have out in Poland. Obviously, we have the LTA. Do your kind of version of the LTA fund the bubbles, or is it a private cost? No.
No, they are mainly the private clubs
Okay.
and
Yeah.
members clubs. I had to, for example, when I was a member there, I had to roll, the clay courts pre-season, with a very heavy roller, and that was a part of your membership. You had to do like certain number of hours on court maintenance work prior to the season, and on top of that, you also paid the membership. And now in England, people, they don't like to play on clay courts because they will have to drag the courts, so they would rather go on the AstroTurf court. So it's a bit different attitude. You feel like you're a bit more part of the club because you're involved in a lot of work. Although I'm talking from my experience as a younger player, but maybe it's changed now, and maybe people became a little bit more lazy, and now they just pay the money and the work is done for them. I don't know that much now what's going on in that kind of clubs.
But I quite like that. in the fact, because you say most people don't like to play on clay at the club that we're at because they have to sweep the courts. I quite like that, because if you're teaching a young child, it teaches them a bit of discipline and a bit of pride in where they're playing.
Definitely, Tom. I totally agree with you. Like I said, I totally felt like the part of the club, because not only that I had to put some work, physical work into the prep for the season, and also, we didn't have like automatic sprinkles or anything. We had a hose pipe, and we had to water our courts ourselves, and for a long time we had to draw the lines ourselves as well, using the this chalk machine. So every time you play, every time you sweep, you have to redo the lines, and yeah, life was a bit more difficult, but at the same time you were more sort of involved in the club's life.
I like that. I like it's more of a community-based feeling, isn't it? Sometimes I feel like at Prestbury, I don't really know many. I know the people I coach, but apart from that, I don't really know that many people. It's very distant. You have your little circle, and then there's another person's circle. And that kind of goes on. It's not really it's not really a community about the club.
Yeah, that's true. I would agree. But at the same time, also, to be fair, we have to take into account the size of the club, because, like I said, mainly in Poland, you've got 2-3 court clubs, where here you can have even, you can have 14. Obviously, in Prestbury, we have 8 courts. So it's like, I don't know now, 500, 600 people there. So it's like everybody, everybody knows me, my face, but I don't know, half of them, I just saw their faces, but don't know even their names if I'm not coaching them. So 100%. It's just the size of the club is also, important.
Then again, that's how society's going, really, because I don't know what it's like for you two where you live, but I know where I live, there'll be a few neighbours around me that I'll know, that I'll speak to, but then there'll be people on my road which I've never spoken to before in my life, and it's sort of getting a little bit you say hello to everyone in the street. We're sort of shying away from that culture a little bit. So as Sam, as you said, you'll have your little cliques and groups, but society's becoming a little bit sort of less sociable, and these times don't really help.
No, it's all gone more online, hasn't it? Facebook.
Yeah, but also, it's apparently it used to be like that in England as well, because as you know, I grew up in Poland, so I've been here 16 years, but my younger years I spent in Poland. So also I grew up in a completely different sort of times when we had communism, we had a lot of obstacles you can't even imagine, and not I always give this as an example. For instance, I grew up in a block of flats, and we had a playground. We had like a dusty sandy area where we were just kicking the ball against the garages, and there was a place where you would put your sort of rubbish from the house as well, and we just draw some lines on these sort of utility buildings, and that was our goals, when we played football there. But I didn't own a football for a while, for a few years at all. And when one of our mates who owned the ball, was away for the weekend, we didn't have a ball to play with, because we couldn't just go and buy a ball. Also, it was very expensive. I have 2 brothers, and it was just, you had to be very creative, but you were spending a lot of time outdoor. You were all the time with your friends from your school, from your estate. So that's why I grew up in that kind of environment when, people could knock on my mom's and dad's, doors, and they would be invited in for a drink, for a food, for anything. When, these days you have to plan the visit. You cannot just rock up at somebody's door and say, "Oh, hi, I'm here." It's usual. You make an appointment with your friends to do that. So totally different times. I think
Very
we're about 20, 30 years behind, England and Poland. So that's why I'm talking more as your mom and dad experience, your grandparents probably, although I'm not that old.
We weren't insinuating anything there, Jarek, don't worry.
No.
Which probably leads on to quite a good thing. So what did you notice, or what were the biggest differences to when you first came to the United Kingdom?
Again, the weather.
Fair enough.
The weather. I think it's important to say also how it all happened, because it's all, a lot of things happens in life, probably for a reason, but at the same time, by accident. I didn't plan to be a tennis coach in England. I didn't even know I could be doing this job. I had no clue where to go. I don't know. It never crossed my mind. So I came here as a physio with my wife, and we got the job through the agency in Poland when Poland joined European Union in 2005. I was, constantly seeking an opportunity to go abroad to work. Initially it was supposed to be Australia, but we ended up in England.
What a shame.
But because of the family, because all their families has been obviously, living in Poland, and we are here. So we thought if we're going to go to Australia, it's going to be a bit tricky if anything happens. So our families, health-wise, it's not that easy just to fly over, from Australia. But anyway, the thing is, like, imagine that somebody just picked you up and just dump you somewhere in Poland, and you would have no clue where in Poland you are. So that's more or less what happened with us. We just got a job. We didn't know even where we're going. We just knew that it's not London. and then it appeared that we are in Cheshire, in the Golden Triangle, and
I've never heard it explained like that. The Golden Triangle.
Golden Triangle.
And then suddenly you're seeing all these posh, super smart cars on the road, and people take it for granted. Where if you've noticed one in Poland, everybody wouldn't know who is the owner of that car. So, so when I came here, it's just first what like I said, it was just the weather raining a lot, but at the same time, beautiful green landscapes, and people obviously are different as well, because in Poland we are a bit more, don't want to offend anyone, but a bit more honest and direct, where in England people are just trying to be nice to each other, not necessarily they mean that. The classic one is when you say in a supermarket and you're doing shopping and such, even if you bumped into somebody, they're gonna say sorry. It's like, sorry is like the word used every day, everywhere, but do people really mean that? It is just a habit of saying sorry, for example, where in Poland, when somebody says sorry, that means they thought about it, and and they really mean it. Well, what else? People are here quite laid back. They are, I think they, people tend to take the things for granted here, because they don't know otherwise. If they are, people who are not that wealthy, they might be struggling with the jobs or something, then there's you've got, the system that helps you with benefits and everything, where in Poland, yes, we have a little bit of benefits, but it's not even near to what you have here. It is like similarly with the LTA and the Polish Tennis Association, where here is plenty of money pumped into the system of coaching clubs, but you cannot see it. You cannot see the results that much. Where in Poland, you probably have about 5% of that budget, and basically it's just nearly non-existent help. It's just a fracture of the help you can get in England, when it comes to tennis or the social benefits. So people are a bit more laid back. They don't think they have to work hard for the things because they come to them.
Yeah.
And yet they still complain and think their life is not fair.
that sort of links on when you were talking about all the funding that is available here. When you look at all the funding that has been put into, and then you look at all the players that the country has produced, if you compare that to Poland, it doesn't seem to be value for money.
No, there's no comparison to Poland. Poland doesn't produce the players because of the system. It is all down to individual circumstances of each player. It's all about how wealthy is the family, because they have to fund everything. You cannot find a sponsor unless you really like in sort of at least in top 100. The good example is Janowicz, the Polish player who reached the semi-final of Wimbledon against Andy Murray, who actually he beat a few months earlier in Paris for the very first time. He beat that kind of player.
Yes, I remember him.
Yeah, Janowicz was 220 something in the world, and suddenly he beats Andy Murray, and then his life changed completely. He broke to top 100, and then everybody was talking about him, and then he got sponsors, and then his life was so much easier. And I think the highest he reached was in sort of like a top 25. So with unfortunately a lot of injuries, and just stopped him from playing for many years, and he was trying to get back to tennis I think last year or so, but because of the lockdowns and everything, what's going on with this COVID, it didn't happen. So it's I know that it was a lot of money invested in him from the family. Agar Advańska is the biggest example. Is probably the best example of how much involvement the family had in terms of finances. They happen to own a lot of expensive paintings. They were selling. Grandparents were selling the paintings and trying to fund her career. And it happened actually, but how many players have the same situation? They spent a lot of money, they remortgage their houses, and then they never make it. So I don't think we have a recipe for producing players. It is just very individual circumstances, and a lot of hard work, attitude of that player we talked about earlier, determination and discipline. And and that's how it's happening. Because, for example, when you think about the players like Kerber, Woźniacki, we call her Woźniaki, they are all sort of Polish players, I call them, because they are of Polish parents. They all speak Polish, but they were born in different countries because it was easier for them to emigrate and have a bit better life. So it's like my kids are born here, but my wife is Polish, I'm Polish, so I think they're Polish, not English. Just because they were born here doesn't make them English, I guess. So it's the attitude to what you want to achieve, I guess, and and it comes in your genes.
Yeah, I think it's that though, isn't it? With players from Poland and even other European countries, the players tend to have a better attitude, especially from a younger age. You look at some of the kids that we coach, and their attitudes it kind of stinks. They don't really want to be there. They don't have the only reason they're there is because the parents want them to be there. They don't really care, and as you say, like a kid from Poland, their parents have put a lot of work into getting them to go and just pay a membership at the club. So they're there to get better at tennis. Well, I think some kids here they're just there for a bit of a jolly. They don't care as much, and I think that might be why European countries do produce the better players compared to here in England, where it's given to them.
To trust me, Sam, that if a parent in Poland is paying for a private lesson, that means that the kid is more serious about tennis than in here. It's yes, there's most of the kids obviously they come for fun and they're doing group lessons, but they're probably gonna have one or two doing private lessons, not taking this that seriously. But most of the people doing private lessons in Poland, that means they really want to see the results, and then the kid is also more focused. it's like, you know, as you know, my son Patrick, he's gonna be 11 in a couple of weeks. He used to play for Man City Academy, and then for various reasons he stopped playing. But he started doing, now it's going to be about sort of 4 or 5 months ago, some sort of like a private group football coaching with the coach who used to work for City, and he's doing this with 3 other players who are brothers. And basically one of these brothers is his teammate from his football team, and he's got an older and younger brother, so he's the middle one. And the first thing the coach actually apparently said, that was the feedback, I couldn't be at that training, but he said it to my wife, but you can see that he is from Poland because of his attitude. That was his first words. I didn't know the guy. I've only heard through some parents that this is a very good technical coach, and is the best in the area. So and that was his, these were his first words. So the attitude was different, and I guess that's pretty much how it is with most of the Polish kids. Although these generations are getting worse, I have to say, in terms of discipline and respect and listening to instructions. They have their own virtual words and worlds, and I think it's going to only get worse everywhere.
There must be though, there must be some kids that you've taught in England where they've had a decent work rate and you've been quite impressed with them. I had, but very few. But these few actually, who first of all trusted me as a coach, and they were, really putting some effort in what we were doing, and they were showing better attitude than others. They actually, were quite good players, achieving, some successful, some success in tennis. They had some good results. They were going to tournaments and winning. They were county champions, and and that includes Grace, who she was one of the very few players, who I've straight away, I thought she's going to be a good player. She started a bit later than other girls who were already, playing well, winning county champions. But I said it to your mom, I guess, and to Grace, that she will be, better than the other girls who are already, lifting trophies. But because of Grace's attitude, she will be better than them at some point, because she's just a late starter. And I think I was right. I definitely think you were. I know firsthand experience that you're definitely right.
I will send you something. I found some. I was going through some stuff, and I have a picture with Grace, which I was given by your mum, I guess. So and there's something else as well. I think I'll send you this so you can see your little sister when she was a very little player, and you were even more. I mean, you weren't more little than her. You weren't smaller than her, but I don't think you had much to do with tennis when she was starting. I think you picked up tennis a little bit later, didn't you?
Just a little bit, yeah. Oh no, it'd be really interesting to see that. Bit of a trip down memory lane. Sam, out of you and I, you're the one with a little bit more sort of experience with coaching from other countries, because you started having lessons in Spain, didn't you? That was your first-hand experience of
I'd learned
tennis.
to play, but that was my first time playing, was in Spain. And I'd say it's completely different. I think when I started playing, I had a full-size racket, yellow balls, and a clay court. I mean, and I was only I was 12, so I was late, but still, that was my first lesson. It was none of this mini tennis stuff that we have. It was just straight into the big stuff. And then as I developed, I think the Spanish coaches are definitely different to English coaches in terms of intensity. They're very intense, and it's very, I felt very fitness based. You're gonna be fit on court is their kind of attitude. You know, with the amount of drills we did and of running around just all the time, and then you'd come over to England, and it felt like a holiday on the court. It was so many breaks, and you know, it was not as drill based. I guess it's more rally based. But yeah, it just felt a lot easier to, you know, fit into a group lesson here because it felt like it's a step down. But again, it's hard to generalize. Not every club is different. Every coach is different. But I just felt on the whole, when I was in Spain, it was very, you know, heavy drill based, and it was all about running around court and, you know, being fit on court. That's what I got from it.
How does that compare with Poland, Jarek?
Yeah, that's how it is in Poland as well. But again, it just depends, you know, on what you want to achieve in tennis as well, because there are different groups. You know, there are, you know, fun groups for the kids who just wants to enjoy themselves, and there are the groups for children who are a bit more, you know, demanding on coaches, and they want to achieve more. But you know, I personally, I've got similar experience to some in terms of starting tennis, because not only I think I started quite late, because I started about when I was about 10, 11 possibly.
Yeah.
I had no family, nobody in my family ever before played tennis. I was the very first one to play tennis. And again, I had a borrowed wooden racket, full-size racket, you know, at this age. And you know, you would have one ball that was, I think, even white at that time, not even yellow, and he was just one of my mates on my estate. He said to me, "Oh, Jarek, you know, how about we go to a tennis club?" And it was a two court tennis club. That was the very first tennis club I've ever went to, and it wasn't like these days, you know. Again, you know, I know that the young people don't like to hear that kind of things, and I don't want to sound like an sort of old fart, but at the same time, you know, I never had my mom or dad taking me anywhere. I was taking myself everywhere by foot or by on the bicycle, and I went there to ask. I saw one older guy. I think he was in his 60s, and he had some kind of group of kids there in a long line of like 10, 15 kids. And I just asked him, you know, how do we become members here? How do we do it? He told me what the price is. I went back to my mom and said, you know, that's what it is. Would you be able to pay that so I could join? And it wasn't joining for coaching at all. I never had a coaching in my life, a single hour of coaching. I just wanted to have the access to the court. So we basically, because of the court space, we were always playing doubles. So I joined with my older brother, and because I'm the middle one, having two brothers. So a 2 years older brother, and then we met a couple of other boys at this club, and we always played doubles there. And I was like, oh, I'm so jealous. There was one guy. He had a racket. I didn't even know at that time. I think it was made of graphite. And graphite, sorry, graphite in English. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I bought very shortly after that, I bought a metal racket with, again, like a trampoline with a small head. But this guy, he was just unbelievable. He was like my guru, you know, he was playing so well. His ball was going in with a beautiful spin. But then I found out this is the boy whose dad is selling tennis rackets. And again, you will be laughing. You will be laughing, but selling tennis racket, not in a tennis shop, because there was no tennis shops. There was the guy who, one of his bedrooms, you know, he converted into a shop. I mean, into a racket display. One of the walls, he had about sort of 6 rackets hanging on the wall. And then you know, I passed some important exams. You know, I used to be a very boring good student, so I passed the exams, and my mom decided to treat me. So we went to this guy to look at the rackets, and then and I was a teenager already. I think it was about 15. That was my first graphite racket when I got it. And I said to my mom, oh, I think this one, and I didn't go for the most expensive one. Trust me, it was like, second from the bottom price, range. And my mom, when she saw the price, she asked this guy whether these rackets are made of gold or something, because the price was shocking to her. But so then when I got my racket, I was just polishing this racket every single day. I bought a extra tape to protect the guard, because on a clay court you can easily scratch the racket when you're picking up the ball with the racket. And it is just, the whole attitude I'd had towards tennis. I spent thousands or even millions of hours hitting the ball against the building next door, and I had to be so precise with my hitting, because there were cars parked on sort of in front of that building. So I had to make sure I hit the ball just above the cars, but not too high, because then the ball wouldn't land on the road to bounce back to me, but would have gone to the grass verge. So I was standing on the grass verge, hitting over the cars and making sure that the ball bounces back on the road. So I was working on my rhythm. Now I know I was working on my rhythm, on my speed, and I had to really be good in that to keep the rally going. Otherwise, I would be hitting the cars, or the ball would be landing on the grass. But just a quick one on the prices, racket prices. If I tell you that. In Poland, I was working at full-time as a physio, and at the same time, I was working full-time as a tennis coach, and at the same time, I was taking annual leave from my hospital to work as a ski instructor. And so that's I've been working all the time, working, and it wasn't just to buy a house or even a car. It was just to basically keep me going and pay my bills. And the money I was getting in a hospital, my monthly salary was £120 a month, and my tennis racket cost me £125.
Oh no! Wow,
Jesus.
jeez, over a month's salary.
So if you have, and that's with the master's degree in physiotherapy. Without this, I would be getting like 100 instead of 120. The doctors were getting about 220 pounds, because the medical professions are so hugely underpaid in Poland till today. If I went back to Poland now and work as a physio, I would be getting probably about sort of 600 pounds a month. That's it. So, my brother was working at the petrol station, my younger brother, and he was getting sort of 4 times as much as I was earning.
Jeez.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Credit to you. Credit to you.
But hence the attitude, I've always worked hard for everything I had. When I came to England, I had about £300 in my pocket, and I was starting my life with my wife from scratch. So, my first car I bought for £300, and it was through some friends from church. We just made some friends through church in Old LiQWYD, because we were living in Little Warford, and the doctors in our health center, he told us about the church in Old LiQWYD, and that's where we went. And then we just made some friends from the church, and then they, after I think it's 2 or 3 months, they helped us to find a car, and it was Vauxhall Astra 13-year-old car for £300 from the vicar. So
Wow.
It was quite interesting, and we used to live in the middle of nowhere with no transportation. So when we were going shopping, we were taking the big backpacks, and we were trying to do the shopping for a whole week.
Wow, yeah, that's incredible.
Credit to you. You could definitely see how hard you've worked both in Poland and here, and you can definitely see why you value it so much in the players that you teach.
Yeah, that's why I got used to it a bit now. But first, I was a bit shocked, because and as I was saying, you know, a lot of things in life happens for a reason, but also by accident. So you know, just going back to my sort of probably, you know, the beginning of my speech. I didn't plan to be a tennis coach in England, but I was playing for Old LiQWYD men's first team there, and just had one of these meals you have after the league matches, and we just started chatting about tennis coaching, and I just mentioned, you know, I just asked the question, you know, so how does it work with the coaching here? And there's one guy who just pointed me actually towards David Patterson, and that's how I started actually the talk about tennis coaching. And then he checked that my Polish coaching qualifications would be recognized here in England, and you know, I was working as a physio for about a year and a half since I came here. But after that, I decided to completely sort of just to sacrifice my life to tennis, you know, the passion to tennis, and at the same time circumstances, because I wasn't working as a in a department I really wanted always to work. I was working with neurological patients, but I've always wanted to work with like sports injuries, musculoskeletal injuries, but you know, I didn't have an experience in that. And I was even approaching Macclesfield Football Club, I think, for some volunteering, but never got anybody to get back to me. And I thought, that's, you know, nobody's gonna give me the job with no experience in that field, but I would like to work at. And I thought, maybe there's a chance actually to completely change the career now and do tennis coaching. Although I have to tell you that in order to become, you know, to be allowed to work as a physio, I put, you know, thousands of hours in the prep, you know, prepping my papers and everything, because as an interesting fact, maybe the physiotherapy is the only medical profession that is not automatically recognized. It is a regulated profession, which means it has to be recognized by the body, and it's based on the paperwork you submit, all the descriptions, you know, this is called the syllabus, which is a description of all the subjects you ever done at uni, descriptions of the whole, you know, of the all hospital practices you ever done. And based on that, you have no come back to them in a way. They're going to say yes or no, we think you are up to our standards, or no, we don't think you are. So if you're a doctor or a nurse, they will be recognized automatically, just a matter of submitting, you know, some you know, paperwork with, So I put a lot of effort to be a physio here, and I ended up working as a tennis coach.
Incredible.
It's funny how life turns out.
Yeah, for a reason, maybe.
Oh, definitely.
But you know, the first thing, you know, just going maybe a little bit off that question is the biggest thing, you know, I was really impressed about was how easy you could get the access to the top coaches, you know, because there was plenty of conferences, you know, workshops, and you could be talking to LiQWYD, you know, who used to work with Andy Murray, and he would be talking to you like you are his colleague from work. And I remember, I will never forget that. I went to the very first workshop with LiQWYD, and I've heard, oh, this is a good guy. You know, I actually didn't have a clue who he is, but I've heard, you know, about him from other coaches, and I like his workshop so much. And you know, he told me he's got one book, because I asked him about the books he wrote. He said he's got only one book on doubles, and I was like, oh, but I would be interested in more books from you. And he said, oh, I'm just working on one book. I'm just, you know, I can send you a draft of that book. And I was like, he said, like, just leave me your email address. I was like, okay. And then I left him my email address. I went back home and I felt like, yeah, right. He's gonna send it to Jarek, you know, like nobody. He's gonna send me an email to me, you know. Do you know what? Couple of hours later, I had a draft of his book on my email with all the notes, you know, in red brackets and everything. It's unbelievable. Cool. I you know, and then I met other coaches, you know, who used to coach like top players in the world, on different courses and conferences. And this is what I've absolutely loved about England, that I can just stretch my hand, and I've got all these great coaches around. I can ask them questions, I can find out, and because I always had that kind of attitude, I wanna know, I wanna learn. I was asking million questions, and it's just unbelievable, how much you can really get from all these guys. I was reading every single tennis magazine you can buy in England. I was on a few tennis websites when I was, just reading articles, watching videos. And, I was around the coaches I wanted to be. I was volunteering, I was assisting. I went to Bolton Arena. I was helping with the squads with Jim Edgar. I remember my times at LiQWYD when they were really setting up the performance program, which was mainly run by Brian McFadden and Darko Voglar, the guy from Slovenia. And actually, Brian McFadden is Irish. And I was so happy that I could be involved in that as well. And I was like listening to every word they were saying, because they are the guys who very, they had, very successful tennis coaches. And Brian, he keeps sending the players to Wimbledon. You have to be a bit of luck, have to have a little bit of luck, but at the same time, you really need to want these things. You want to, if you want to improve, you need to want these things.
Completely agree with that. I mean, that was probably one of the main reasons why I worked at David Lloyd, because there was such great tennis coaches working there, and it's a perfect place to learn off because it's indoors. You've got such nice courts to play on, well, you do now. But all the coaches are people like Brent Parker, who's coached national players, coach Naomi Brody. You've got Amanda Twigg, who's recognised for doing brilliant things with under 10 players, and you just sit in on their lessons or their squads and you just learn so much. So I completely agree with you on that. Just learning everything and anything that you could get your hands on.
Yeah, but you have to be lucky to be around, because there was a dead period, I believe, in David Lloyd after I left, and shortly after me, there's a few more coaches leaving, including Darko and Brian, and I think it's just the level of coaching, the standards they dropped, I think, hugely. It was dropped hugely, and then Mark Airy used to be there as well, and
another great tennis coach I'll put in there.
I didn't follow Mark Airy that much, but I know that he's a great coach, and I definitely could learn a lot from him if I would be around him. And at the same time, I was saying that you were lucky, but probably that second sort of wave of good coaches who was coming to David Lloyd, and you happened to be there at the right time, because it's not always like that in David Lloyd's. Just coaches coming and going.
No, I definitely agree with you. You can be in the right place at the right time.
100%. I was unfortunate when I got my offer. It was when everyone was leaving, so I missed out.
But you were very, very fortunate not to take that offer.
I was very fortunate not to take the offer. I was very fortunate. So it was a little bit.
I think they were trying to flag the hole with anybody then Sam.
No. Cheers, Jarek. Thanks.
Sorry.
There we go. Bad old singer.
I thought I'm hurt.
No, just kidding, obviously.
No, yeah.
You know me. I like sarcasm. I like.
Yes, I know.
If you heard my customers repeating what I say to them, you would be surprised they're still with me then.
It's all good. It builds character.
It does.
I remember one guy, he was quite funny. He was an adult, and I had an adult group. I think he was the only male player in that group. It was some kind of cardio group. And then when he came, he turned up I think it was Saturday morning, and then he said, so we had a session and everything. So and I said to everyone, okay, see you next week. and he said, "I'm surely gonna be here for how does he put it? For another portion of the weekend abuse."
You know, having a good attitude and all that, but at the same time, you do need to have a little bit of fun, a bit of banter in there as well.
Yeah, you have to, but you know, at the same time, when you think about coaching, it is quite a lonely profession, I would say, and because you spend most of the time on the court with kids. And I absolutely love coaching kids. I love the thinking out of the box because they don't have any kind of habits. They just react to what's happening, and that's why I love asking questions. During my sessions, and the kids can come up with such amazing even exercises and stories, and obviously they talking off topic very often, saying, I've been to my friend's birthday yesterday. Yeah, but we are just talking about your forehand today.
Yeah.
Just talk about anything.
Yeah.
As much as I love the kids, and the banter with them, and you just have to be a bit nuts to work with kids as well, because you pull faces, make just funny voices, and just to make the kids laugh as well. And I love that part, but at the same time I miss the interaction with adults. Like when I used to work as a physio, you would have a physio department, you would be sitting together at the lunch times, you would be sort of talking to another adult, and I think obviously it depends on every coach sort of setup, but I don't run that many adult groups, and I think sometimes I really like. It's like now I've always had a lot of things to say, so that's why I'm probably even talking too much during my lessons, and I do it because I just miss conversation with people, and a lot of people actually they like it, but and I have a lot of like a sort of friendship, through tennis. Some people just keep showing me their family photos from their children, their grandchildren, and so it's not just like, how's my forehand looking at Jarek today. It's you're talking about a lot of things during tennis lessons with people, and I love that part definitely. But at the same time, because my life is very much like a routine life, I in the morning I'm on my own at home, the kids are at school, the wife is at work, and then when I'm off to coaching for the afternoon usually, then an evening, then everybody's back home, or they're just going to all these after school activities with my wife, and I don't see the kids. And then when I come back again, the same, I just come back home tired, sit at home, eat something, watch TV, go to bed, and the next day is the same thing. I don't have that much sort of social life outside tennis, because that's how it is also when you have kids and you're working hard, and I kind of miss that interaction with adults on a daily basis, if you were working sort of in a like I said, in a physio department or in an office environment. I think that's nice to have that as well. It's always the right balance. You have to have a little bit of everything. It's like a lot of people are jealous about our work outside. They say, "Oh, at least you don't sit at, in the sort of crowded office all day with other people." But at the same time, sometimes I wish I was in a crowded office, having the roof over my head, rather than looking up the sky and thinking, what's the weather's going to bring today. Just a bit of everything.
Oh dear, no, I understand that now, definitely. Checking the weather forecast every day. What am I going to have? What am I going to have?
Imagine that, before mobile phone era, I know it's difficult for you guys to imagine that, but even in England, when I started coaching in England, I there was no like a weather apps or something. I don't know. I didn't have it for a long time, and I was always going to work without checking the weather. But then, since they, became very popular, it's like every blooming day I'm checking the weather forecast.
I love it. Yeah,
It's just that.
100%.
Back in Poland, when I was but back in Poland when I was coaching, I didn't have a mobile phone. So you go into the lesson and if they don't turn up, you have no contact with them whatsoever until you get back home and you can ring them from the landline and ask what happened. So totally different life.
No, 100%.
Right, Jarek, we've got one last question for you
Sure.
to round everything off. And that's bit. Sam and I, as you've alluded to, are quite a bit younger than you. Have you got any advice for any young coaches out there, that one bit of advice that you'd give to anyone who's starting tennis coaching or thinking of coaching?
I think you have to follow your dreams. If your dream is to be a tennis coach, just follow that dream and work hard and believe in yourself. Because if you believe in yourself, then hopefully you're gonna be working hard, and then your dreams will come true. So I probably could say that to all the coaches. And at the same time, the fact you're young coaches. It works to it's work towards your advantage as well, because you have so many resources available now, and you can, in a short period of time, you can learn a lot of things. Where I had to get the little things bit by bit throughout all these years I've been coaching. But at the same time, remember, don't forget that the coaching experience shouldn't be measured by the years of coaching, but by its intensity. And like I said, as a young coach, you can be very successful if you're going to be working hard. If we were talking about the Polish players and especially female players, although I would argue that we still have Hubert Hurkacz, who is in top 25 in the world, or Kubot, who the number one in doubles last year and 2 years ago, winner of Wimbledon and a lot of other Grand Slams. But the coach of Iga Świątek, you pronounce her name Świątek, he is only 29. Okay, he's only 29. So this guy is not the guy who you would send your kid to if you wanted your girl to be a Grand Slam winner. But it proved that it's working. And but this is the guy who wanted to be professional player himself. Then he started sort of coaching his sister when she was 13. He went to Johan Kriek's tennis academy in South Africa, and that's where he gained his experience. And actually, I met Johan Kriek many years ago in England as well. He wanted to set up like a Polish girl team, like Woźniacki, Kerber, Radwańska, and it was nice to have a chat with him. Just a side comment, but the thing is that at the age of 29, he achieved so much with the player, and I think you obviously don't need to have the players who believe in you, but the most important thing is you have to believe in yourself that you can deliver, you can fulfill the potential of the player, and then it's gonna be all good, hopefully.
Wonderful. You hear that, Sam? All you've got to do is believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
It's true. You have that belief. If you don't believe in yourself, then other people won't believe in you. It all starts with you, doesn't it?
I could be talking. We could be talking all night. I could be telling you loads of stories. But I had to believe in myself. I was in a lot of different circumstances in my life, and just the self-belief is the most important thing, I think.
Well, I think that was a lovely note to end on, Jarek. Thank you very much for taking part in this, and you've had the honour of being the very first guest on the podcast, so you can always say that.
My pleasure, guys.
It was very interesting.
Knowing you two for as long or for as short as I know you, but I can definitely say that I believe in you guys, and I know that you're gonna be successful people, and I know that. Trust me, I know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jarek.
You're doing a great job with a lot of things, so I'm sure you will find a way to get to the top of whatever you want to do, guys.
Thank you, Jarek.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. And I wasn't cheesy, trust me.
On that note, we'll end it there. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to this Just a Couple of Bagels podcast with me, Tom Jones, and Mr. Sam Brown. And hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.
Cheers. Goodbye.
Yeah, hope you enjoyed that, guys, and I wasn't too boring. Thank you.